In this section of notes, we'll take a look at the presidency of Lyndon Johnson and his system of domestic reforms known as the Great Society. Following the assassination of President Kennedy, Johnson was sworn in as president aboard Air Force One with Jackie Kennedy at his side. This was not how Johnson had wished to reach the presidency. 5 days later, with the nation still mourning the loss of JFK, Johnson addressed Congress saying, "All I have I would have given gladly not to be standing here today." Lyndon Baines Johnson came from a humble background. He was a fourth-generation Texan whose father had worked a variety of jobs. Johnson received his teaching degree from Southwest Texas State Teachers College. He later taught public speaking and debate at Sam Houston High School in Houston, Texas. He was later persuaded to run for a vacant seat in the House of Representatives. After winning that election, Johnson caught the eye of then-President Franklin Roosevelt, who helped him secure key committee assignments in Congress. Johnson idolized FDR and imitated his leadership style. Later, he narrowly won a seat in the Senate and rose to the position of Senate Majority Leader. As president, Johnson had an in-your-face style. He was tall and large and used his size to intimidate colleagues. Johnson's first acts as president were to finish some of the tasks that President Kennedy had started. In February of 1964, he was able to persuade Congress to pass Kennedy's tax cut of $10 billion into law, and as he and other Democrats had hoped, the tax cut spurred economic growth. Then in July, Johnson pushed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 through Congress. He was able to persuade Southern senators to stop blocking its passage. Following these successes, Johnson pressed on with his own agenda. Early in 1964, he declared an unconditional war on poverty in America and proposed sweeping legislation designed to help Americans on the outskirts of hope. In August of 1964, Congress enacted the Economic Opportunity Act, approving nearly $1 billion for youth programs, anti-poverty measures, small business loans, and job training. The Economic Opportunity Act legislation created the Job Corps Youth Training Program, VISTA, or Volunteers in Service to America, Project Head Start, an education program for underprivileged preschoolers, and the Community Action Program, which encouraged poor people to participate in public work programs. In 1964, the Republicans nominated conservative Senator Barry Goldwater of Arizona to oppose Johnson. Goldwater believed the federal government had no business trying to right the social and economic wrongs such as poverty, discrimination, and lack of opportunity. He attacked such long-established federal programs as Social Security, which he wanted to make voluntary, and the Tennessee Valley Authority, which he wanted to sell. In 1964, most American people were in tune with Johnson. They believed that government could and should help solve the nation's problems. Moreover, Goldwater had frightened many Americans by suggesting that he might use nuclear weapons on Cuba and North Vietnam. Johnson's campaign capitalized on this fear. It produced a chilling television commercial in which a picture of a little girl counting the petals on a daisy dissolved into a mushroom cloud created by an atomic bomb. Where Goldwater advocated intervention in Vietnam, Johnson assured the American people that sending U.S. troops there would offer no solution at all to the real problem of Vietnam. Johnson won the election by a landslide, winning 61% of the popular vote. The Democrats also increased their majority in Congress, and for the first time since 1938, a Democratic president did not need the votes of conservative Southern Democrats in order to get laws passed. Now Johnson could launch his reform program in earnest. In 1964, in a speech at the University of Michigan, Johnson summed up his vision for America, saying, "The Great Society is a place where every child can find knowledge to enrich his mind and to enlarge his talents. It is a place where leisure is a welcome chance to build and reflect, not a feared cause of boredom and restlessness. It is a place where the city of man serves not only the needs of the body and the demands of commerce, but the desire for beauty and the hunger for community. It is a place where man can renew contact with nature. It is a place which honors creation for its own sake, and for what it adds to the understanding of the race. Like his idol FDR, Johnson wanted to change America. By the time Johnson left the White House in 1969, Congress had passed 206 of his measures. The president personally led the battle to get most of them passed. Johnson considered education the key which can unlock the door to the Great Society. The Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965 provided more than $1 billion in federal aid to help public and parochial schools purchase textbooks and new library materials. This was the first major federal aid package for education in the nation's history. Johnson and Congress changed Social Security by establishing Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare provided hospital insurance and low-cost medical insurance for almost every American aged 65 or older, and Medicaid extended health insurance to welfare recipients. A good way to remember the difference between these two: Medicare is for the elderly need more care, and Medicaid is for those on welfare need more aid or more assistance. Johnson and Congress also addressed housing needs around the nation by establishing the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, and also by appropriating money to build some 240,000 units of low-rent public housing and to help low and moderate income families pay for better private housing. These are just a few of the measures of the Great Society. Johnson and Congress also addressed concerns in immigration, environmental concerns, and consumer protection. The wave of liberal reform that characterized the Great Society also swept through the Supreme Court of the 1960s. Beginning with the 1954 landmark decision Brown v. Board of Education, which ruled school segregation unconstitutional, the court under Chief Justice Earl Warren took an activist stance on the leading issues of the day. Several major court decisions in the 1960s affected American society. The Warren Court banned prayer in public schools and declared state-required loyalty oaths unconstitutional. It limited the power of communities to censor books and films and said that free speech included the wearing of black armbands to school by anti-war students. The Warren Court also addressed the issue of reapportionment, or the way in which states redraw election districts based on the changing number of people in them. By 1960, about 80% of Americans lived in cities and suburbs. However, many states had failed to change their congressional districts to reflect this development. In a number of key decisions, the Warren Court established the principle of one person, one vote. The court asserted that the federal courts had the right to tell states to reapportion or redivide their districts for more equal representation. In 1966, in Miranda v. Arizona, the court ruled that all suspects must be read their rights before questioning. Today we know these as the Miranda rights.